point is that any story, no matter how controversial, no matter how exotic, if it can't get in the news here, it comes in here, or maybe here. And then it works its way up if it's got legs, as we say, right? If it has traction, if it has power. And the way it works itself up is primarily over here, because all of these entities have their internet component, and this internet acts like an elevator between these levels. So if UFO story comes in here, jumps to here, then there, and turns up there. So this is putting huge pressure on all aspects of all issues in the world today, and the ability of people in power to, quote, control how individuals think about it. This is a good thing. There's consolidation and what have you, but it's a good thing. Then, probably the second most profound pressure on the truth embargo, guaranteeing that it will end soon, is the witness emergence. And there have always been people coming forward, going back to 1947, right? But since the Cold War ends in 91, the emergence of witnesses, now these are individuals who have worked in government, in positions of authority, in political appointees, or even politicians, members of the military, members of civilian agencies, and so forth, who have come forward and said, I saw this, I did this, I know about that. And this testimony, when you look at it in the collective, points at one thing: extraterrestrials. These are courageous people with very few exceptions. They're absolutely solid, very persuasive, in trying to tell the truth as best they know it. And their numbers continue to grow. They are certainly in the hundreds by now. I want to mention two in particular. Colonel Gordon Cooper, the legendary astronaut, came out in the 70s and said, look, I've seen things, I know this is real, and tried to raise this issue as best he could. He was a great man in many ways, and this only made him greater, though I can assure you it did not make his life easier. And in the later years, he fell into Alzheimer's and was not able to pursue the issue right to the end. But his mantle was taken up by this gentleman, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut who walked on the moon. This is another great man. And in the mid-90s, he started to say, talk about assert the truth as he saw it, that the ET presence is real, Roswell was real, and he continued to say it over and over again until the media finally began to pay attention. And that occurred in July, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Dr. Mitchell, I work with him closely, and I can say, matter-of-factly, that Dr. Mitchell, 77, he's had 2 cancers and a heart attack. He is committed to ending this truth embargo before he leaves this mortal coil. And I certainly am going to do my best to see that happens, and everyone else I know in this room and elsewhere doing the same. And just as a quick note, this is Gordon Cooper right here. In 1978, I believe, he went to the UN as part of an interest in UFOs that developed due to Grenada Prime Minister Sir Edward Gary, very interesting fellow. And this is Gordon Cooper, and next to him is Jacques Vallée, and then you have Dr. Alan Hynek is here, Kurt Waldheim, that's Grenada Prime Minister Gary. This is 31 years ago. The UN has basically not done anything, though there have been some rumors lately that meetings are being held there, as they should be. But these are the kinds of people that absolutely should be listened to by every media in the world, and they weren't in an appropriate fashion by any degree because of the truth embargo. Right? Now, probably no one in the world has done more to consolidate, to bring out, and put forward and raise in the public's mind the emergence of these witnesses than Dr. Stephen Greer, who spoke yesterday through the Disclosure Project. Absolutely. This is a major, he's been involved in the issue going all the way back forever, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but the Disclosure Project and its witness program is a major historical event, an accomplishment. And it hit a high watermark in May 9th of 2001 when 21 witnesses were brought to the National Press Club for a major press conference, the largest there to date that I'm aware of. I believe that's what we were told. There were 200 people in the room that day. There were 100 press, though the local Washington Post reporter said there was just 100 people in the room, but he obviously couldn't count very well. And 17 camera crews that are sitting off to the back here, way behind the audience. And the testimony of, I think about 75 witnesses was presented in consolidated form by a videotape. And 21 witnesses testified right there in brief, each one saying that they would repeat all of that under oath before the U.S. Congress. This event could have led to something big, no question about it. The news media was responding. ABC News got in touch with me and said they wanted 6 witnesses presented. Of course, I passed that on to Dr. Greer. He then provided 6 witnesses for ABC to vet, and they actually started that process. This was for Nightline. And other media, particularly international media, were starting to sort of crank up. It's not like they could just jump in the pool. They had to put their toe in first, but they were climbing in the water. But then, 4 months later, almost to the day, 9/11 happened. And it is the custom in our societies that when something like that happens, everything stops. Everything's put aside. Right? I think that's a huge mistake. I think you deal with it, you deal with everything else too, and you move on. You can't be pushed back. Because you see, there's always mischief going on in the world. Right? There's always somebody that's going to blow something up, invade some country, start a genocide. Bad behavior is still around.
9/11 was an inside job.
It could have been. Either way, it's still bad behavior. And so,
No Bin Laden.
I'm not saying it's not or it is, not my issue, but it had the effect of tabling the ability to bring the UFO issue. It set us back without question. Had that not happened, I believe that the press conference of May 9, 2001 could have led to a series of media events which would have possibly brought disclosure under the first term of the Bush administration, though it would have been very, very difficult. Nevertheless, the witnesses kept coming forward, and then in November 12th of 2007, a similar event took place. This one was put together by James Fox, who is a documentarist. I believe his documentary made with Tim Coleman, Out of the Blue, is the best ever done on this subject. They did a revised version recently, and he has a new documentary coming out called I Know What I Saw. I think it has a chance to go theatrical on the big screens. James Fox, in conjunction with the Coalition on Freedom of Information and Leslie Kean, brought extraordinary witnesses again to the National Press Club and again held a very important conference. What was notable, that was moderated by a well-known politician, Fife Symington, from a well-known political family. And what was notable, particularly about this event, was the 13 witnesses were mostly international and people of extraordinary stature. Wilfred de Broer, Major General from Belgium, Claude Poher, engineer, astronomer, and astrophysicist, who I think was in that meeting, if I'm not mistaken, at the UN in 1978, and Jean-Charles Dubois, the Air France captain and pilot, who is here and be presenting and has the Exopolitics branch website, and Dr. Jean-Claude Reeves, the astrophysicist with the National Institute of Astronomy, Parviz Jafari, the general in the Iranian Air Force that was part of that extraordinary event where the plane was disabled as it approached the UFO, Rodrigo Garito, captain pilot Chilean Army, and then Santa Maria Huertas, commander Peruvian Air Force, and so forth. I think you can see this is an extraordinary group. They got significant press coverage, and the news cycle lasted for a while, and then sloped off, and we moved on. But again, this event is made possible by the effort of the Disclosure Project, Dr. Greer, 6 years earlier, and there will be more press conferences. The witnesses are continuing to come forward. It is relentless. It will not stop. This is the full group, including Fife Symington, who was a moderator, and notable because Fife Symington was the governor of Arizona in 1997, and he made fun of the Phoenix Lights event, and it was a notable thing. He made a laughing thing of it. And then, 10 years later, to James Fox, he confessed that he regretted that, and in fact, he saw the first event that night in Phoenix in 1997, where the Triangle craft flew right over him, and he has a